Welcome to I forgot what is this?
This is the Thoughty Smart Book Club.
Yes. Okay, so all right. Thanks for joining us today. Welcome to Body Smart Book Club, where we share the best of what we've read. So today we'll be talking about chapter 8 in I'm dropping things out of there. Chapter 8 in Mark Sisson's book Primal Endurance. And so the focus of this is complementary movements and lifestyle practice, right? Complementary to all the training that we're doing. And we all just really love this chapter. There's a lot of good information in there. Some really great information about sleep and strategies to help sleep better and kind of optimize that. And we'll link below to a little table on some specifics that you can try out if you're struggling with sleep or getting to sleep. Things that you can do, change in your environment and kind of in your daily schedule to accommodate better sleep. So we'll get into that. I guess let's just dive into that sleep part of things. He started out with one thing that I love. So he said something. So he said that sleep is for peak performers. Taking naps, getting adequate sleep doesn't make us lazy, right? It's really designed to put us at the top level of performance and help us to sustain not only our training but the other activities that we have to do in our lives. We've got to have proper sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the examples that he gives in the book is talking about the NBA and these basketball players that are playing on a very consistent basis. If you're not familiar with their schedule, typically they have a game every other day. They're flying across the country for these games. It's just a very busy schedule. And the example he talked about with them was that they have this 3-hour block from like 1 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon before games where they're all just napping. They're all easy time where they're just off their feet and relaxing. And I mean, these are some of the best athletes in the world. So It definitely shouldn't be perceived as something that's lazy, because obviously it's seen all the way from the best athletes in the world as well.
Definitely.
Right. Something that I really like that he said is you should forget everything you read in this book if you're not getting enough sleep. That should be your number one priority, and I absolutely agree with that. Who was the quote by? The quote said,
Charles Barkley?
Charles Barkley. Yeah, I'll sleep when I'm dead. That doesn't work for athletes. If you're an athlete, you've been on a run or you've done a workout on 3 hours of sleep versus a full night's rest. Big difference, right?
Yeah, right? Like, so sleep does so many things, but it really jumpstarts some of those anabolic processes in our body, right? So we see an increased release of testosterone, increased release of growth hormone, to help our bodies repair from what we've experienced throughout the day. It's also a way to kind of consolidate and store our memories properly and help kind of organize what's going on in our brain, so that we're not just chronically trying to catch up with the stresses that are going on in our life. Whether those stresses be from work or relationship or training stresses. Our brains need time to sort through that information and to process that. And so sleep is just absolutely important for top performance and just for healthy everyday living.
Yeah. I mean, what good does all the training you do? I mean, that's kind of comes back to the point you said that, nothing else is important in this book if you can't nail down this one thing. Because what good does all the training do if, you're constantly just breaking yourself down and it's just this downward spiral and you're never coming back up? You're not going to see any gains that way. You're just going to be on a road to injury, chronic fatigue. And those things can affect you outside of just training as well, just in your social life, your work, with your family, things like that as well.
Yeah.
Right, and you're not recovering. You're not recovering if you're not sleeping.
So it's actually cool. So I thought it'd be good to put some of these things into practice that he's talking about. And so over the past couple of days, I've tried to implement some of those things, and it's actually made a difference, and it's been kind of cool. And so he mentioned just trying to wake up more naturally, right? Like going with your body's natural circadian rhythm. And if you are going to use an alarm clock, using something that's like nature sounds. So we were talking about earlier. I just went to YouTube and I was like, nature sounds. And it was birds chirping and some like water running, and I just recorded it on my phone and then set that as my alarm. But the next morning, like, it was really nice to wake up to that. Like, it felt like kind of when you're camping, right? You just wake up really slowly and naturally, and it's peaceful, and you have the wind rushing through and the birds. And so it made a really big difference. Like, I just definitely woke up more peacefully than my usual alarm, which totally creates a stress response, right? I hear those sounds and it's like, oh, right?
Yeah.
The other thing that I tried, which was not only nice from the perspective of helping me wake up, but just from getting me in the right mindset for the day, more of like a meditative repose, is that he suggested, after we get up, going outside and just taking a little walk or spending some time in that natural light. And so that's what I've done the past few mornings. Is I've gone outside right after I wake up, roll in bed, wake up and get outside, and then I just sit there, and it's still nice and cool in the morning. It's really quiet and really peaceful, and so I've just had some time to kind of give myself permission to relax when I'm waking up, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's made that process a lot nicer and made me feel more ready to meet the challenges of the day. Just those simple tweaks. And so there's some really good information in here, and some simple tweaks I think that we can all make that can, like I said, not only improve our fatigue, right, how we're feeling throughout the day, but start us off in the right mental state for the day.
I love that. What a good way to set the tone for the day. Chris and I were talking about alarm clocks, and I was telling him about how I have this song as my alarm, and it's been my alarm for like a year. I don't know why I haven't changed it, but as soon as it goes off in the morning, like, immediate anger. I just wake up angry. And every time that song comes on the radio, I just want to punch something. It used to be my favorite song, but now I hate it. So maybe I'll try to do what you're doing and find some nature sounds instead.
There you go. Yeah, take it up one level and actually go out in nature and
But then
record
I'm going
it.
to hear birds and get angry.
Oh, yeah. You're like,
going
why
outside
are you
after
making
that?
sounds? There you go. Maybe some white noise will just make it really low level.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
seriously.
think of all the negative emotions that come from, you think of that blaring alarm that comes like preset on your phone, just the loud screeching noise of the alarm. I always just wake up so negative with that. And you're starting yourself off on the wrong side of the bed, per se, that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then just making sure that, if you have something that's a little more relaxing, it's going to be calming as you wake up. It's going to feel more natural. And then, like you said about being relaxed, I think a lot of the times we wake up and we have those alarms because we have so much we need to get done. But if we're thinking about all that stuff, it can be kind of daunting right when you wake up. You don't want to get out of bed. It just makes it harder to wake up, I feel like.
Absolutely.
So if you plan time for yourself to wake up and, go downstairs and sit outside and relax, or, I don't know, some kind of routine. You even mentioned just going out and getting the newspaper.
Yeah.
It could be something just really simple, is a little bit more enticing to get out of bed as opposed to, I have to go to work for 8 hours, or I have to go on this long 15-mile run, or whatever it is that your morning routine generally has.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the point of get up early, because if you get up 2 or 3 hours earlier than you usually, well, I guess you don't have to get up that much earlier than you usually do, but give yourself some time in the morning to be able to relax, to be able to make breakfast, to be able to get ready for the day. Because if you wake up, if you sleep in, this is usually what I do. I hit my snooze, and I have 15 minutes to get ready. Then you're trying to grab everything, and on top of that, you're thinking about everything you have to do for the day, and that's just a horrible way to start. And then the rest of your day is you're just rushing and forgetting things and locking your keys in the car. And when if you just wake up maybe 30 minutes earlier than you usually do to give yourself that time, it'd make a huge difference.
Yeah, it really doesn't take that much time. You think about like, when you're rushing to work, think if you just had an extra 10 minutes, your whole morning would be completely different. You wouldn't be rushing around. And in the long run, and obviously we're pitching, how important sleep is, but waking up 10 minutes earlier, what difference does that really make to your recovery and things like that? Like, it's going to start your day on the right foot. And then if you're going to bed on time, you're still going to be able to get in as much sleep as you need to get.
Yeah. And I think that maybe a really important concept to hold here is we're not always going to get perfect sweet sleep, right? Every night isn't going to be that exact 8 hours, and we're going to have a variety of stresses and different things in our lives. But I think it's really about setting those patterns like you talked about, right? This is what we're doing, and we make it easier to choose positive behaviors by setting some of those routines in place. And so I think that's really powerful. So even though every night's not going to be perfect and things are going to be vary based on our schedules and other things, if we really have those patterns set in place that are healthy and that are positive, and that kind of move us in the right direction, I think all the better.
Absolutely. One pattern that Mark Sisson talks about is screen time before bed. He said what's
So hard.
ideal.
So hard.
Honestly, he was good at this. He suggested putting away all screens, TV, phone, tablet, everything 2 hours before bed. He said if that's too hard, then at least 1 hour before bed. And that's something that I definitely need to implement, because I'm laying in bed, everyone does this, right? Scrolling Facebook, checking emails, checking Instagram, and it just takes way longer to fall asleep. It's not relaxing. You try to close your eyes and then you're thinking about these posts, like these political posts you see that make you really mad.
You just read that stressful work email that has like something tasking you to get in the next day.
Yeah, exactly. And also, sorry to interrupt you, but if you're married, it's also good to lay in bed and talk to your spouse, socialize, right? Instead of both of you just scrolling on your phone.
Yeah. No, I think that's such an important point, because as like many opportunities that we have to be connected to other people in the world, we're very disconnected, right? That kind of isolation in company, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we're around people, but we're not present with them. And so trying to adopt some of those behaviors in simple bedtime routines, I think can have a powerful effect, right? Where we have the opportunities to connect with others, rather than just being so absorbed in the activity at hand. And it talks about that point later in the book that we'll talk about a little bit, but the importance of that social contact and as a way to relieve stress and cope with the demands of our lives.
He also said that artificial light suppresses melatonin, which obviously needs melatonin to sleep.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
He mentioned this study in the book.
So weird. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't it so weird that our whole body has what is it called?
Like light receptors.
Light receptors. Yeah. So in the study, it was dark. People close their eyes, and then they shine a flashlight just behind their knees.
Why behind the knees, though? That's my question.
I don't know.
These are the important questions. No,
I mean, like your eyes are like facing forward.
Yeah,
it's like
just
the first
somewhere
thing.
where they
Yeah.
can't, where
I
they
don't
can't
know.
see, right? So obviously they didn't see any light, but it still suppressed some of the melatonin and made it hard for them to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So he suggests turning off all artificial light, even like a little night light or like a little tiny, maybe your Fitbit is charging and there's like a little tiny glowing light. He said put duct tape around that, cover all of the light, and that's going to help you sleep better.
Yep.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, along those same lines, he also talked about the atmosphere you're sleeping in, making sure you have like a clean space and having a cool room to sleep in. So it's a great area that's going to be conducive of getting good sleep as well.
And I like how he said, and you shouldn't put your little makeshift office in the middle of your room. Who
That
does
is
that?
stressful.
I remember I used to have that. Yeah. And I eventually had to move my office out of my room because I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So again, setting up sleep is a really important component for feeling well and doing well in the rest of our lives. Which gets us to our next point. Great transition, Mark. Yes, I had a better plan for transitioning out of that. So we've really talked a lot about sleep, how important it is, and how just those little habits that we build can fill our next day with some successful behaviors. But once we've gotten that quality of sleep in, that's a great starting point. But if we stop there, that's not enough, right? One of the really big things that this chapter stressed was the importance of, once we're up for the day, once we're about our day, that we keep moving throughout the day, so that we, because I think it's very easy, we start our days right, and then we just go into this pattern of sedentary behavior, and we really cut ourselves off at the knees. So if we start that day right, we've gotten good sleep, and then we build movement into our day and into our work and other activities, all the better, right? And the idea of that really contributing to an overall healthy lifestyle.
I am so excited to talk about this. It's called the active couch potato syndrome.
Dun, dun, dun.
I definitely used to be like this. So I think back to when I trained for my first marathon, and I was in school at the time, so most of my day was spent sitting in class, then I came home and I was sitting, studying, and I went to bed, repeat. But I was training for marathons, so I got my miles in, so I'd wake up, I'd run 5 miles, then I'd sit for the rest of the day. Wake up, run 5 miles, sit for the rest of the day. And I remember during that time of my life, I remember always feeling heavy and yucky. And I look back at pictures when I ran my first marathon, and I probably was about 10 or 15 pounds heavier. I didn't even realize. I just felt yucky. And that's something my husband and I, training for this 100-mile race, we've made a big point to make sure that we're up and we're moving once an hour. We've been going to the park every night and like throwing a football back and forth, or we'll throw a frisbee back and forth, or we go on a little walk. So we're trying to just be moving throughout the day. And I can even tell a difference between, I'm moving a lot one day, then the next day my workout's a lot better. Versus one day when I sit all day, like Sunday. Like on Sunday, I tend to sit a lot more than most days, right?
Lazy Sundays.
Oh yeah, you gotta love lazy Sundays. But like I'll sit all day Sunday, and then on Monday, it affects that workout. I can feel it. I can feel the effects of sitting all day. And that's just from sitting all day for one day. Now, what is that gonna do to your body when you're sitting all day, every single day, right?
Definitely. And I mean, that's not what our bodies were designed to do, right? If you think back to our ancestors, right, it was moving pretty much all day with certain bursts of high activity, and then certainly times of rest. But it was not, I'm going to run really hard and I'm going to sit on my butt for 16 hours, right? Like that's not what our bodies are primed for. And so when we choose that pattern, I think we come under the illusion that, I'm training, right? I'm doing activity, and so I'm fine the rest of the time. But when you consider all the time that we're awake, all the time that we have in the day, like 1 hour compared to the 16 or 17 or 18 hours that we're up a day isn't a lot. And if that's the only time we're really moving, then we're just not giving our body enough stimulus to make the positive adaptations that we want to see, and to kind of bulletproof it from some of the chronic health problems that we see, right? It's cardiovascular disease, diabetes, obesity. And so, yeah, I love that term, right? Like, I think we've talked about it with conversations with Cameron and other people, right? The idea, but like labeling it, right? Active couch potato syndrome is so true. And I think trying to get out of that illusion of, if I'm active, I'm healthy. That is true. If you're active, you're going to be healthy. It's good to be active, right? But if I just, if I get my, quick workout in, or even if it's like that long run, right? If I get that in, then I'm good for the rest of the day. I don't have to do anything. I can pound the carbs at the end of the day and it'll be fine because I got the workout in.
Totally. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about, how our responsibilities have changed as well, though, since our ancestors have, you mentioned, they weren't just doing one bout of exercise and then sitting the rest of the day. A lot of the times, that's more conducive to the lifestyle that we have right now. You think of the jobs that we have.
Yeah.
People that will be, sitting down all day at a desk at a computer. But there's ways we can vary that. These movements don't need to be some grand exercise or anything like that. So whether it's, standing up for an hour during work at a stand-up desk and then sitting down for the next one. Because even, we mentioned the same thing, standing up the entire time isn't necessarily good either, because you're in the same scenario. You're basically doing the same thing to your body. You're just going to be more tired after. And so just making sure you're moving. So whether that's, taking a 5-minute walk break every few hours, or switching between standing and sitting up. There's ways that we can still do that with our current situation, because obviously we can't just get rid of our jobs and the settings we have.
For sure.
As nice as that'd be to go out and build play all day and do that kind of stuff, we do have to still follow those responsibilities.
Yeah, I like that. And kind of along the same lines, he talked about, changing up your body position throughout the day. So like you said, standing up, sitting down. he also suggested
Breakdancing,
things like
you know,
breakdancing, doing
as one does.
backflips, the things people do. He also talked about maybe doing things like sit on the ground, sit like crisscross applesauce and work on your computer, or maybe sit on your stomach or sit on a bosu, go into a different room, like just be always changing your body position. And it just reminded me of this YouTube video that I was shown in massage school. I would have to try to find it again, but it was this lady who's all about like moving your body in different positions, and she was just showing like her house and how she had it set up, and it forced her to move her body in different ways. So instead of putting her dishes like where people normally put their dishes in the cupboard, she put them in the lowest shelf. So she had to get down to get her dishes out, and so she just organized her kitchen in a way so she was having to climb up on things and get down on her hands and knees to get things. And instead of a kitchen table, they just sat on pillows in the living room. Wow. And just kind of interesting, but I think that's great to always be moving your body and sitting in different positions and just moving in different ways.
It'd be really hard to explain to your guests when they come in and you're just like, okay, here's your pillow. You sit on this one. Dishes are down there.
I just want you to move. That's all.
I'm helping you.
I'm definitely not going here again, honey. No, seriously. So it's funny, all this talk. So watch gives me move alerts, which are like the worst because I feel like it's just telling me that I'm fat and lazy. But I mean, like, honestly, right? So I was gonna turn them off. I was talking to Melody about this the other day. Like, oh my gosh, it's so annoying. And like when I've been sitting for a while, they come on and just disturb me and my sittingness.
How dare they
do that? I was totally gonna turn it off. And then as I was reading through this chapter, I was like, okay, Mark. Real talk time. You gotta be moving more. And so it's been nice because it helps me to remember to move. Because as much as being like, oh yeah, I should move more throughout the day, sometimes it helps to have those cues and even if it's a watch to help keep you accountable is nice. And I have been moving more throughout the day, and I'm like, oh yeah, it has been a while since I've taken a break, or like let me get outside of this, and then whatever the activity that I'm going back to, especially if it's something that's taking a lot of cognitive focus, I feel much more refreshed. So we need those breaks. Mark talked about in the book that we can maintain kind of an intense focus for only about 20 minutes at a time, and often for only about 10 minutes at a time. And so we need those breaks. Because what ends up happening, I think, when we don't take those breaks is that we take them kind of involuntarily. In the book he mentioned, we open up a YouTube video, or we go Wikipedia surfing, right? And then there's, 20, 30 minutes, an hour that's gone because we didn't give our brains a break, and so our brains made us take one.
Yeah. It's the same principle with like training. Obviously, we don't take your easy runs easy enough. It just diminishes the rest of your work the rest of the day. And so if you're doing the same thing with your mind, if you're not taking those little breaks, in the long run, you're going to be less efficient doing your work. And so it'll probably take just as long as if you'd taken a break and felt refreshed through the entire thing.
That is so true. That's a great analogy. Also, can we just talk about those times, though, where watch does go off and we're like, no.
This couch is too comfortable. I am not leaving.
So I was like, it's so funny because before we started filming, I was thinking like, I really hope my watch doesn't go off while we're filming.
I hate it when it goes off when you're driving. I'm like, I can't step right now.
Yeah, start shaking your hand around.
Yes. So sometimes it's nice that like the vibration of the car will like clear my move bar for me. I'm like, yes. It totally counts. I was moving, my arms. It's great. So I guess let's talk about those breaks a little bit more, because yes, we definitely want to build them into like cognitively demanding tasks, during the workday, but the importance of like having real unstructured moments, right? The idea of building play into our day and letting ourselves relax and kind of lay off some of the burdens of our day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but get out and play. It's something that we all kind of look over, especially as we grow up. We become adults essentially, and are always working or have all these responsibilities, and we forget about why or what we really enjoy and what makes us passionate and wakes us up every morning and gets us excited about the day. And without those kind of things, what's the point of all the stressful stuff we do, we do that so that we can enjoy life. And so not overlooking that is important, and not only for our health, but then again, just for our enjoyment of our life and the people around us.
Yeah.
I love that. You mentioned growing up and we kind of forget about play. And this is something that Mark and I were talking about yesterday. I was pondering life. And I was like, what is the difference between like myself in high school and myself today? And I just remembered being so happy in high school. I was so happy. I was surrounded by friends and family all the time. I remember just laughing all the time, and I just felt full. And I was like, what am I missing in my life? Why don't I feel like that anymore? And it hit me that I'm not playing. I'm not with people all the time like I used to be. You know, in high school, it's easy because you go to school and you're literally surrounded by your friends all day. It's easy to be with people. It's easy to have fun. But nowadays, you know, when you grow up and become an adult, you have to schedule those times to play. You have to schedule those times to get together with people, and you have to put forth a lot more effort to put yourself around people. And it gets a lot harder. But I think if we decide to make that effort, I think it's going to make a really, really big difference in our lives. So just be with people and just play. I think Brene Brown calls it piddle paddle time.
I love it.
Where you don't have anything planned, you don't have anything to do, but you're just with people, you're just talking, you're just playing, goofing off with each other. And I think those moments are so important. Those moments where we just forget about our responsibilities and we just connect with people and reconnect with ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to make time for that.
Absolutely. So it's interesting because there's been, especially in the last 10 or 15 years, a lot more research into positive psychology and kind of into the science of happiness. And what they found is that we benefit so much more from experiences, right? Experiences with others, where we get to create memories rather than, getting a specific possession, right? Or, getting that promotion at work or getting this thing, right? Those things bring us some short-term happiness, but what really is effective for long-lasting happiness is that focus on building the relationships in our life and having experiences with others, in a variety of experiences. So I know when we were talking yesterday, you mentioned that, well, I had, this is my friend that I go shopping with, and this is my friend that I, talk about the tough stuff with, and then this is the one that I just like down a ton of carbs with, right?
Yeah.
And so recognizing that we need those interactions in our lives to really fulfill us and to help us be human, right? Because life is really difficult sometimes. We have a lot of stresses, and so when we expand our circle of friends and our circle of influences, I think we end up all the better, rather than narrowing it down and just becoming so focused and so isolated in pursuit of whatever thing that we leave the most meaningful relationships behind.
That kind of comes back to one of our points that we had talked about prior to recording, about being spontaneous with it as well. When we get our minds so narrowly focused on one thing, oftentimes our performance will go down, or enjoyment of that thing will go down, because it's so overbearing on us compared to everything that we could potentially be doing. I can't remember which one of you it was, but you were talking about the old folks' home.
Yes. Yeah.
How they found that the death rate would change based on the different schedules they would put out for these elderly people. And so if they had set a time like, okay, we're going to bring around this dog for everyone to, or play with and be around, it usually had a positive effect on them, but when they did it at the exact same time, where it was a scheduled thing, it became less and less effective because it wasn't something that was spontaneous, something that was exciting, that really changed the attitude for their day.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That was such an interesting thing. We definitely need spontaneity in our lives, right? Our brain needs different experiences. And if we're just limiting it to a very narrow scope of focus, then we lose out a lot. And you said it so well, right? Like kind of the sweetness of life's experiences are drained out of those experiences because they've become so methodical and so planned out, and there's just no room for being a kid again.
Mm-hmm. Can I share a few experiences that I had this week with being spontaneous and
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I love that you
Definitely.
talked about something with me. Yeah.
So a few things, even
How
before.
spontaneous of you, by the way.
Well, even before I read this chapter, like I said, I was pondering life, and I was like, I need to be around people, and I also was like, I need to just experience life, and I just decided, okay, these next couple weeks I'm going to really focus on just experiencing life and being in the moment. And so a few things that I did was, one day I was feeling kind of sad. It was a hard day, so I was like, I'm going to go on a run. So I went on a run, and it was like 95 degrees, and I was running by a river, and I was like, I'm going to hop in the river. So I just took off my shoes and put my phone down, and I just hopped in the river, and it was so nice.
That was really
and
cool.
I felt refreshed and happy afterwards, and I was able to get on with the rest of my day. And another run I went on, there was a big bush of honeysuckles, and I was like, oh, I love honeysuckles, but I'm all alone, there's no one with me, it'd be weird if I'm just here like sucking on honeysuckles. But then I'm like, no, experience. So I stopped and I sucked on the honeysuckle, and it was so good, and it just felt good to just experience. And one more experience I had is it was again on another run, and running is a great way to experience life, by the way. So I was on another run, and most of the time I'm pretty intense. I'm like, I want to get a good time, and I don't stop and look around me. And so I'm running down this hill, and I run past this rope swing, and I was like, oh, that's cute. And then in my head I'm like, experience. So I paused my Strava, and I just sat on the swing, and I just swung in the swing for a little bit, and it just felt good. And just by stopping and doing these little things, I just feel happier. I feel like more myself. I feel like I have more energy. I feel like I want to be around people. I want to experience more, and it's been really good.
Yeah. And think how small some of those things are too. Like, it's not like you went down to something huge, and how something that's super small had such a big impact on your day.
For sure.
Like, you stopped for, I don't know, maybe just 5 minutes to taste the honeysuckles.
And not even that long, like 30 seconds. I stopped, stuck the honeysuckle, and I was 10 times happier.
Yeah. And it completely changed the outlook of that run. It's something, you're memorable now, days after the fact.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, just taking the time to get out, and if you have some kind of an impulse, go do something, run a new route, do that trail you've been neglecting, or invite that friend out that you've always wanted to go running with that you haven't had, I guess, the courage to reach out to go run. Those little things can not only change your day, but in that case, be able to change their day, and give them a little bit of spontaneous ness in their day. I don't know the word for that. Spontaneity. Does that work? Yeah.
So that's actually, I want to stop on what you said, that you give them some spontaneity in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a really cool thing, right? When we're practicing these habits and these behaviors, like we naturally find ourselves with opportunities to share them with others, and to create positive changes for good in their lives as well. And so, it's not just things that are effective for us, but that can be effective for the people around us and our communities. And so I really like that. And it speaks to a couple points that he had in the book that I really loved. So the first was stepping outside your comfort zone, right? You mentioned, oh man, let me ask that friend that I haven't quite had the courage to.
Yeah.
I remember there's a saying that I've like, I have a love-hate relationship with it, because I see the truth in it, but I understand the difficulty, right? So it's that there's no growing in a comfort zone, and there's no comfort in a growing zone, right? Learning to be a little bit more uncomfortable with experiences, but in the pursuit of experiences of new and varied things, and I think it brings back a vivacity to life.
Well, that's a good word.
So there's that, and then the other thing is you said, let me run a different route than usual, or hey, I'm gonna, I know I wanted this time, but I'm going to stop and taste the honeysuckles, like that phrase.
Stop and taste the honeysuckles.
It's like stop and smell the roses, right? There you go. But and there's another point he brings up in the book, is releasing attachments to outcomes, right? I have to have this time in this run, and I have to, I have to PR at this run, or I have to eat this perfect meal, or I have to lose 10 pounds, and finding more joy in that journey, and building our goals more around healthy lifestyle patterns, right? So versus I have to get on that podium in the race is, boy, I'm going to start training more because running is something that I want to do. And I recognize that it will have, I can eventually get there, but along the way, I'm improving my health. I'm getting out more. I'm doing more with my body. I'm being more mobile. The same thing with losing 10 pounds, right? Rather than that being the focus, it's, well, what are the patterns that I'm adopting on a daily basis? Well, I've cut some of these foods out a little bit, right? I'm not eating donuts for every meal, which sounds delicious, by the way. Yeah. And just, right, I'm becoming a healthy person. I'm building a healthy lifestyle rather than I have to be this right now. And I think being able to release some of those attachments, I think along with that comes a release of some of the anxiety that we experience around those outcomes, as well as some of the negative feelings as well.
I love that. I love the word becoming instead of, like you said, basically reiterating what you said. You need to focus on becoming instead of hating yourself for not being where you want to be. But just think about, I'm going to become that. I'm becoming right now by taking these baby steps.
Yeah.
That's really all what life is, right? We have these goals, getting really deep there.
It's good stuff. It's good
This
stuff.
is the essence of life. We have these places we want to be in the future, but we are always told to enjoy the process of getting there and becoming who we want to be. By the time we get there, it's always but there's another horizon right there. And so we're never really satisfied with where we're at. So if we're not enjoying the process of getting there, and then we get there and then we're still not satisfied, when in that process are we actually happy, actually enjoying what we're doing? And so if we take the time, as we start to become who we want to be, through our play or through our work or whatever it is that we're working on, we find more joy that way. And I found that in my personal experiences, especially with running, that the races that I come into really excited to be there, really happy to be there, whether I've been training well up to that point or not, are always the races that I do the best at. Not only because I've run a good time, but at the same time, I really just enjoy being there and the opportunity that I have to be able to do what I do.
Yeah.
I love that. Enjoy becoming.
Yeah,
yes.
that is really powerful. I love the way that you put that. It's like giving me tingles.
I know.
Got me tingles. No, so I love that, and I think that's been really fun as we've read this book, is being able to dive deeper into some of those things, and that not just sticking on the sports side of things, but right, how can we become? I can't say it better than that. You put it really well. And so building those practices and taking those small steps, like you mentioned, in the process of becoming, really helps us to find joy in our journeys and bring some light and some life into the lives of those around us.
I love that. And I just thought of this, and I really want to share this because it goes back to when you were talking about when we experience it affects other people too. And I feel like maybe this would be a cool story to end the video on. So the same run where I stopped in swing on the rope swing, I was running down and I passed a lady on the trail. We waved. I went a little bit further and I found a credit card on the trail and I picked it up. I thought it was a lady, so I turned around real quick and I was like, "Are you Rachel?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I gave her card, and I just thought if I never stopped to swing on that swing, that probably would have never happened. I wouldn't have ran into the lady and ran into the card at that moment. So just a little
pretty cool.
Yeah, experiencing affects other people.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I like that.
Place to cap it for sure.
Yeah.
Good happy story that shows that what our actions do influence other people, and who knows what would have happened if you hadn't stumbled upon her card or stopped to pick it up. There's a lot of worse situations that could have come from that with someone else picking up that may not have been as honest as you were with that.
Right.
So, yeah. Well, thanks for joining us. I know for all of us, I think this was a particularly meaningful episode. And just, like I said, thanks for joining us. So,
We're just gonna go cry now.
We're gonna go
talk
cry
about
now.
sponsors
Yes.
real quick.
Molly
forgot
Ryan
about that.
sponsors.
One more thing.
Quick thank you to our sponsors. So thank you to Run for Fun, the Facebook page. Thank you to the Utah Running Shop.
Woo!
Thank you to the Wasatch Run Club.
Join the Wasatch Run Club.
Do it.
Thank you to St. Joseph's High School track team and cross country team. And thanks to Jimmy Thomas Tooele Race Series. We'll see you guys next time.
We're gonna get all your wiggles out.